The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos, alarms blaring as panicked whispers spread like wildfire through the stunned representatives of a dozen alien races. On a crackling view screen loomed the face of a human, broadcasting from a lush green world deemed uninhabitable by all the brightest minds in the galaxy. Moments before, the Council had been locked in a bitter debate over the shocking revelation that rogue human colonies were not only surviving, but thriving on planets strictly forbidden for settlement. Vox, the Evora delegate, had demanded the immediate destruction of the illegal outposts. "The humans have defied our laws and threatened the very fabric of our galactic order," he hissed, his thin lips curled in disgust. "They must be made an example of." Richard Davis, humanity's lone voice on the Council, slammed his fist on the podium. "The exiles left Earth centuries ago, fleeing the oppression of the United Earth government. They've built new lives on these worlds, harming no one. They are peaceful, but if you attack them, they will fight back with everything they have, and they will win." As the transmission from the Forbidden Colony filled the screen, Davis felt a surge of pride mixed with dread. The exiles had remained hidden for so long, but now their secret was out. The Council would surely vote to annihilate them, to wipe away any challenge to their authority. But the exiles were resourceful, and they had technology the Council couldn't even dream of. If war came, it would be bloody, and the galaxy would tremble. Davis knew he had to find a way to protect the exiles, to convince the Council to leave them in peace. But as he watched the face of his fellow human, broadcasting from a world that shouldn't exist, he wondered if peace was even possible. The exiles had defied the Council's will, and now there would be consequences. The only question was, would humanity survive them? The chamber fell silent, all eyes locked on the holographic image of a grizzled human in a tattered uniform. Captain James Hawkins, his face smeared with blood and grime, stood amidst the smouldering ruins of a once thriving colony. "This is Zephyrus Prime," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "We're under attack by an unknown alien force. They came out of nowhere, with weapons we've never seen before. Plasma cannons, energy shields. They cut through our defenses like they were nothing." Behind Hawkins, a building exploded in a burst of green flame, showering the ground with molten debris. Screams echoed through the smoke-choked air. "We've sent distress calls to Earth, but there's been no response. We're dying down here. We need help. Now." Vox leaned forward, his eyes glinting with malice. "This is a perfect opportunity for the Council to assert its authority over these rogue colonies. I propose we send in the Galactic Council peacekeeping force to secure the colony and eliminate this alien threat." Davis shot to his feet. "The GCPF? You mean the same force that leveled an entire city on Krell Prime last year during a peacekeeping mission? The one composed almost entirely of Evora and Krell soldiers, both species with a history of aggression towards humans? No way, I'll lead a team of human exiles to assist the colonists and find out what these aliens want." The Council chamber erupted in shouts of protest, but Davis pressed on. "I have 2 former UEG elite soldiers on my team, Michael Spike Thompson and David Raven Blackwood. We can handle this." After a heated debate, the Council relented. "You have 48 hours, Davis," the chairwoman said. "After that, we send in the GCPF." As Davis strode from the chamber, he activated his comm. "Spike Raven, meet me at the hangar in 10. We're going to Zephyrus Prime." In a shadowed alcove, Vox tapped a sequence into his wrist computer. A hooded figure appeared on the screen. "Commander Zix," Vox hissed, "the Council has agreed to send the humans to Zephyrus Prime. Make sure they find nothing that could implicate us. And, Commander, leave no survivors." The Xiphon commander nodded, his eyes glowing beneath his hood. "Understood, Counselor. The Evora will have their war." The ESS Odyssey touched down on the surface of Zephyrus Prime, its engines kicking up clouds of ash that mixed with the smoke from the burning wreckage of the colony. Davis, Thompson, and Blackwood emerged from the ship, weapons at the ready, and surveyed the devastation. "Oh my God," Thompson whispered as he took in the sight of mangled bodies strewn across the ground. "We're too late." Davis clenched his jaw and pointed towards the ruins of the central building. "There might still be survivors. Fan out and search for any signs of life. Be on the lookout for those Xiphon bastards." The three exiles moved cautiously through the rubble, their combat armor gleaming in the flickering light of the fires. Suddenly, a burst of plasma fire erupted from a collapsed wall, narrowly missing Blackwood's head. "Contact!" he shouted, diving for cover behind a smoldering hover truck. Thompson and Davis opened fire, their advanced human weapons spitting out a hail of bullets that tore through the Xiphon's energy shields. The aliens returned fire, their plasma weapons leaving glowing craters in the ground. In the chaos of the firefight, Thompson took a direct hit to the chest, the plasma burning through his armor and into his flesh. He collapsed, screaming in agony. "Spike!" Blackwood yelled, rushing to his friend's side. He slung Thompson over his shoulder and started running back towards the Odyssey, dodging plasma bolts as he went. Davis provided covering fire, taking down 2 more Xiphon soldiers before retreating to a new position. He spotted a hatch leading underground, partially hidden beneath a pile of rubble. With a grunt of effort, Davis heaved the debris aside and yanked open the hatch, revealing a dimly lit tunnel. He dropped down into the darkness, his weapon's flashlight cutting through the gloom. The tunnel led to a reinforced door, which Davis kicked open to find a group of terrified colonists huddled in a hidden bunker. Among them was Captain Hawkins, cradling a wounded woman in his arms. "Thank God you're here," Hawkins said, his voice raw with emotion. "We thought we were the only ones left." Davis helped the colonists to their feet. "We're getting you out of here, but I need to know what happened. Why did the Xiphon attack?" Hawkins hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic object. "This is why," he said, holding it up to the light. "Neutronium. We found a massive deposit beneath the colony. It could change everything, make ships faster, weapons stronger. The Evora must have found out. They hired the Xiphon to wipe us out and claim the neutronium for themselves." Davis cursed under his breath. "We need to get this information to the Council. But first we need to get you and your people to safety." He contacted the Odyssey and arranged for an evacuation, then led the colonists back through the tunnel and towards the waiting ship. But as they emerged from the ground, a shadow fell across the colony. A massive Xiphon battlecruiser had entered orbit, and dropships were already descending towards the surface, filled with heavily armed soldiers. "Get to the ship," Davis shouted, pushing the colonists towards the Odyssey's open cargo bay. Plasma fire rained down around them as the Xiphon soldiers opened fire, their weapons tearing through the colony's remains. The Odyssey's defensive turrets roared to life, blasting the dropships out of the sky, but more kept coming. Davis and the last of the colonists sprinted up the cargo ramp, plasma bolts sizzling past their heads. The moment they were aboard, the ramp slammed shut, and the Odyssey lifted off, its engines screaming. Xiphon fighters swarmed around the ship, peppering its shields with plasma fire. The Odyssey shuddered under the onslaught, warning lights flashing across the bridge. "Shields at 20%, Blackwood shouted from the pilot's seat, his hands flying across the controls. "We can't take much more of this." Davis gripped the back of Blackwood's chair, his knuckles white. "Make the jump to hyperspace now." The Odyssey shuddered again as a plasma torpedo detonated against its hull. And then the stars outside the viewscreen stretched into long lines as the ship leaped into hyperspace, leaving the burning ruins of Zephyrus Prime behind. In the ship's medbay, Thompson lay unconscious, his chest a mess of burnt flesh and melted armor. Davis stood over him, his face grim. "He needs more help than we can give him," Blackwood said quietly, placing a hand on Davis's shoulder. "And the Odyssey is barely holding together. We need somewhere to lay low and make repairs." Davis nodded, his mind racing. The Evora would be hunting them now, and the Council couldn't be trusted. They needed allies, someone with the strength to stand against the Evora and their Xiphon dogs. "Set a course for Krell space," Davis said, his voice hard. "It's time we paid our old friends a visit." Blackwood raised an eyebrow. The Krell, they hate us almost as much as they hate the Evora. What makes you think they'll help? Davis's eyes glinted with determination. Because we're going to offer them something they want even more than they want us dead. We're going to offer them a chance to fight. The Odyssey streaked through hyperspace, its hull groaning under the strain of the damages it had sustained. In the dimly lit medical bay, Thompson lay unconscious, his breaths shallow and labored. Blackwood worked feverishly to keep his friend alive, his hands shaking as he applied salve to the charred flesh. Davis stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the Krell homeworld. He took a deep breath and opened a communication channel. This is Richard Davis of the exiled colonies, requesting an audience with Warlord Caxthar. There was a moment of tense silence, then a deep growling voice filled the bridge. Richard Davis, your reputation precedes you. What business do you have with the Krell? Davis straightened his shoulders. Warlord Caxthar, I come to you with grave news. The Evora have betrayed the Galactic Council and the principles of peace upon which it was founded. They have orchestrated an attack on one of our colonies, hiring the Zephon to slaughter innocent civilians. Caxathar's holographic form shimmered into view, his reptilian features twisted into a scowl. And why should this concern the Krell? Because the Evora seek to control a resource that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy, Davis said. Neutronium, and they will stop at nothing to get it. Caxthar leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. Neutronium? You are certain of this? Davis nodded. I am, and I am willing to share this resource with the Krell in exchange for your help against the Evora and their Xiphon dogs. Caxthar was silent for a long moment, his clawed fingers tapping against his throne. You are either very brave or very foolish, human, but I respect your honesty. The Krell will aid you. I will send a fleet to intercept the Xiphon battlecruiser pursuing you. Davis bowed his head. Thank you, Warlord. The exiled colonies will not forget this. As the communication ended, Blackwood entered the bridge, his face drawn and tired. Thompson is stable for now, but he needs proper medical attention. Davis clasped his friend's shoulder. He'll get it. The Krell are sending help. Blackwood's eyes widened. The Krell? Are you sure we can trust them? No, Davis admitted, but right now they're the only allies we've got. In the depths of Krell space, a fleet of warships assembled, their angular hulls bristling with weapons. On the bridge of the flagship, Commander Raxthar stood tall, his red scales gleaming in the light of the holographic displays. The Evora have gone too far, he growled to his second-in-command. It is time they learned the true strength of the Krell. The fleet leaped into hyperspace, the stars blurring around them as they raced toward the Krell-Evora border. They emerged into a maelstrom of plasma fire and debris, the Xiphon battlecruiser looming before them like a monstrous predator. Raxthar bared his fangs in a vicious grin. All ships engage the enemy. Show them no mercy. The Krell ships surged forward, their advanced weapons tearing through the Xiphon's shields. The Xiphon returned fire, their plasma cannons leaving glowing scars across the Krell hulls. On the bridge of his flagship, Raxthar gripped the arms of his command chair as the ship shuddered under the impact of a plasma torpedo. Alarms blared, and sparks flew from overloaded consoles. Shields down to 20%, one of the Krell officers shouted over the din of battle. Hull breach on deck 4. Raxthar snarled in frustration. The Xiphon were putting up a fiercer fight than he had anticipated. Another torpedo slammed into the ship, and the bridge exploded into chaos. Commander, we must abandon ship, his second-in-command urged, his voice tinged with desperation. Raxthar hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Sound the evacuation order, all hands, abandon ship. As escape pods jettisoned from the stricken flagship, Raxthar could only watch helplessly as the Xiphon battlecruiser turned its guns on the fleeing Krell. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a familiar shape emerge from hyperspace. The Odyssey swooped into the battle, its human-made weapons spitting fire at the Xiphon ship. Davis's voice crackled over the comm. Commander Raxthar, We're here to assist. Prepare for boarding. Raxthar felt a grudging respect for the human's bravery as the Odyssey pulled alongside his escape pod, its airlock opening to receive him. As he stepped aboard the human ship, he found himself face to face with Davis. "Thank you for the rescue," Raxthar said, his voice gruff. "But the battle is not yet won." Davis nodded, his eyes hard. "Then let's finish it." Together the human and Krell ships drove the Xiphon into retreat, their combined might proving too much for the enemy to withstand. As the last Xiphon ship fled into hyperspace, Davis and Raxthar stood on the Odyssey's bridge, surveying the wreckage of the battlefield. "The Evora will not take this defeat lightly," Raxthar warned. "They will seek retribution." Davis met the Krell commander's gaze. "Then we'll be ready for them, together." As the Krell fleet began to make repairs, and the Odyssey set course for Earth, Davis and Raxthar sat in the ship's mess hall, discussing the implications of the Evora's treachery. "The Krell have long suspected the Evora of manipulating the Galactic Council for their own gain," Raxthar revealed, "but we never had proof, until now." Davis leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "And you think an alliance between humans and Krell could help restore balance to the galaxy?" Raxthar nodded. "Many among my people believe so. The Evora have grown too powerful, too arrogant, they must be checked." As Davis pondered the Krell commander's words, a message from Earth flashed across his wrist computer. He read it quickly, his eyes widening. "The news of the attack on Zephyrus Prime has reached Earth," he said, his voice grave. "The people are demanding action against the Galactic Council." Raxthar's eyes gleamed. Then perhaps the time has come for a new order in the galaxy. Davis stood on the bridge of the ESS Odyssey as the battered ship limped into Earth's orbit. Raxthar, his new Krell ally, stood at his side, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the view screen. "Incoming transmission from UEG headquarters," the communications officer announced. Davis nodded. "Put it through." The face of Admiral Elena Novak appeared on the screen, her expression grim. "General Davis, welcome back to Earth. I wish it were under better circumstances." Davis frowned. "What's happened, Admiral?" "The UEG has declared war on the Galactic Council," Novak said. "The exile colonies are no longer seen as a threat, but as heroes. The people are demanding action against the Evora and their allies." Raxthar growled. "The Krell will stand with you, human. The Evora have gone too far." As the Odyssey touched down on the landing pad at UEG headquarters, a crowd of cheering humans surrounded the ship. Davis, Raxthar, and the surviving colonists from Zephyrus Prime emerged to a hero's welcome. But the celebration was short-lived. Alarms blared across the city as sensors detected a massive fleet of Evora and Xiphon ships entering the system. "They're launching dropships," a soldier shouted. "They're invading." Davis grabbed a plasma rifle from a nearby weapons rack and turned to Raxthar. "Looks like the war has come to us. Are you ready to fight, my friend?" Raxthar bared his fangs in a predatory grin. "I was born ready, human." The combined human and Krell forces met the Evora invasion head-on, the skies above Earth's cities filling with the flashes of plasma fire and the explosions of dying ships. Davis led a squad of UEG Marines and Krell warriors into the heart of the battle, his rifle spitting bolts of superheated plasma into the ranks of the advancing Evora. At his side, Raxthar wielded a massive Krell warblade, the glowing red blade slicing through Evora armor like paper. Together, they pushed the invaders back, step by bloody step. But the Evora kept coming, wave after wave of fanatical soldiers throwing themselves at the human and Krell lines. Davis watched in horror as Thompson, his oldest friend, fell to an Evora plasma bolt, his body reduced to a charred husk. Blackwood, his face streaked with tears, fought on, his rifle blazing until an Evora grenade took him in the chest. He died in Davis's arms, his last words a whispered plea for vengeance. Across Earth and its colonies, the story was the same. The human-Krell alliance fought with bravery and skill, but the Evora's numbers and advanced technology took a heavy toll. In a bunker beneath the ruins of New York City, Davis and Raxthar pored over a holographic map of the Evora homeworld, searching for a way to end the war. "There," Raxthar said, pointing to a heavily fortified compound on the outskirts of the Evora capital. "The High Council will be there, directing the war effort." Davis nodded. "Then that's where we need to go. We'll infiltrate the compound, capture the Council, and force them to surrender." It was a desperate plan, a last-ditch effort to save humanity and its allies from annihilation. Davis and Raxthar assembled a small strike team of their best warriors and boarded a stolen Evora shuttle. They slipped past the Evora defenses, landing on the outskirts of the capital city. Disguised in stolen Evora armor, they made their way through the streets, avoiding patrols and checkpoints. At the entrance to the High Council compound, they broke cover, their weapons spitting fire as they charged the gates. Evora guards fell before them, their blood staining the polished stone of the courtyard. They fought their way into the heart of the compound, Davis and Raxthar leading the way. In the central chamber they found the High Council, cowering behind a phalanx of elite guards. Davis and his team cut through the guards like a plasma torch through steel, but not without cost. One by one his warriors fell, until only he and Raxthar remained. Surrounded and outnumbered, they fought back to back, their weapons blazing. An Evora guard lunged at Davis, his plasma blade aimed at the human's heart. Raxthar leaped in front of the blade, taking the blow meant for Davis. The Krell warrior fell, his lifeblood pooling on the polished floor. With a roar of rage and grief, Davis cut down the last of the guards and stood over the cowering High Council, his rifle aimed at their heads. "Surrender," he growled, his voice raw with emotion. "Surrender or die." Faced with the choice between death and capitulation, the High Council surrendered. The war was over. In the aftermath, a new treaty was signed, recognizing the sovereignty of the exile colonies and granting humans and Krell equal representation on a reformed Galactic Council. But for Davis, the victory was hollow. Too many had died, too many friends lost. As he stood alone amid the ruins of Zephyrus Prime, he wondered if peace could ever truly last, or if the cycle of war and revenge would continue, as it always had. The galaxy had changed, but at what cost? Only time would tell. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.